Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the LUFC Fan Zone podcast. I'm Sam Isles.
And I'm Jack Ellis.
In each episode, we'll be talking to an ex-Leeds United player or manager about their time at the club. Last episode was the second section of our anniversary episode with former Leeds United manager Howard Wilkinson. And in last week's episode, we spoke with Howard about winning the Division 1 title in 1992, which was not only the last time Leeds won the top division in the final year before the formation of the Premier League, but it remains the most recent time an England manager has won the top division of English football, which is quite remarkable given that it was almost 30 years ago now. Do you think that record will ever be broken, Jack, as in an England manager winning the Premier League, or do you think Howard will keep it forever?
In the near recent future, I can't see it being broken. You look at English managers and you think, if you're talking right now, Ryan Mason at Spurs, but obviously that's only temporary. So, right now I can't see any English manager coming close to what Howard achieved, and I can't see it for a long time, to be fair. I don't know about yourself.
No, yeah, definitely. And although there might not be many successful current England managers in the Premier League, obviously Howard Wilkinson has a legendary status at Leeds. He managed 400 games at the club and won 173, which is a win percentage of 43%, which of course is a very good record. And without a doubt, Howard is one of the greatest managers Leeds ever had. But to compare his stats to Marcelo Bielsa, Bielsa's been in charge of Leeds for 138 games now and has a win percentage of 52%, which is higher than Howard's. So because of that, in your opinion, who do you think out of Bielsa or Howard Wilkinson deserves the greater status at Leeds? Because, of course, they're both two legendary managers in the club's history.
Yeah, I think obviously Bielsa, fantastic, but ultimately I think he judged on what you've won. And for me, like I said, although I wasn't actually born during Howard's time at the club, you hear stories about Bournemouth away and going from the second division to the first division, what's obviously now the Premier League. And I think ultimately he judged on what you win and how you transform a team. And don't get me wrong, Bielsa is probably 3/4 of the way there. To probably answer your question, it's got to be Wilkinson at this moment in time, because he won the first division with Leeds, and like I said before, I think you're ultimately based off what you've won at the club.
Yeah, and if you haven't had a chance to listen to our 1 year anniversary show with the legend that is Howard Wilkinson, or if you missed any of our other shows, they're all available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, simply by searching the LUFC Fan Zone podcast. Just before we go into today's show, today's episode is sponsored by the Mystery Football Kit Co.
So the guys over at Mystery Football Kit Co have reached out to us and happily agreed to sponsor the podcast and support us as a small business ourselves. They are Leeds fans, and what they are offering is a Mystery Football Kit Box. And if you're not sure what a Mystery Football Kit Box is, it's the opportunity to get your hands on a shirt you might not have got before. It's from any team, from any time, including this season as well, all over the globe.
All you have to do is select your size on their website, as well as any kits or colours you don't want to feature in your mystery box. So obviously you'll be selecting no red kits in that category straight away. And your very own mystery shirt will arrive on your doorstep, and you won't know what kit you've received until you open up.
All of their shirts are handpicked to each order, and every item is of high quality, and I must emphasise as well, genuine, brand new football shirt from either this year or any previous year from any club around the world.
And because of our partnership, as well as the fact that we like to look out for our listeners, if you enter the code LUFC FanZone at checkout, you'll receive 10% off your order. So make sure you head over to Mystery Football Kitco on Instagram or www.mysteryfootballkitco.com to check them out, and make sure you add the discount code LUFC FanZone at checkout. But on to today's show, and this week we're back with another former Leeds United player. However, someone who only played once for Leeds in the league. After arriving from Spain, he joined Leeds' under-23 side and captained the side for the majority of his time at the club. He made his only league appearance for Leeds in the Championship against Preston, however travelled with Leeds' first-team squad to the controversial tour of Myanmar in 2018. Following the departure of Paul Heckingbottom, he featured in Marcelo Bielsa's first pre-season at Leeds and captained the under-23 side to league and cup glory in the 2018-19 season. However, following that success, was released by Leeds when he returned back to his homeland in Getafe. That's right. This week, we're delighted to be joined by former Leeds United defender Hugo Diaz. Hugo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joe.
And Hugo, you left Leeds in 2019 and returned to Spain with Getafe, but since then you've moved from Spain and to Poland because, well, we thought your current club was Corona Kielce in the Polish second tier. But what's happened there and how did you find your time in Poland?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was difficult time because this pandemic is hard in all the countries. But I thought it was difficult for me also because I couldn't adapt very well to the culture or to the city and the team also.
Although you were playing in Poland, which has now come to an end, you started your career at Deportivo La Coruña in Spain, and that, of course, was the club that you arrived at Leeds from when you made the move in 2017. Can you remember when you first became aware that Leeds wanted to sign you, and what did you feel about making the switch from Deportivo to England and to Leeds?
Yeah, I remember when I had the offer of Leeds, and I remember one conversation that I have with my dad, and he spoke to me about the about Leeds and the club because they play against Deportivo and they won us in Champions League. So I thought it was a good chapter to go and to start this new chapter there in Leeds also.
Because you were away from Spain for the first time when you did join Leeds, how did you find the initial changes off the pitch, such as England, as like the weather, the language barrier, like we just talked off air about, trying to understand people from Leeds, and how did you find settling into life in Leeds?
Yeah, I remember when I arrived there, I was studying English in the school all my life, but when I arrived there and I started to listen the accent and these things, I thought that it's hard now. But after, I think I got adapt very very quickly and I was very happy there also. So the football at the beginning it was something different of Spanish style. It was more physically or more attack, counter attack. But at the end, I think it was easy, more or less.
Yeah, and when you joined Leeds as well, Hugo, in that same transfer window at the start of that 2017-18 season, there were a lot of new players at Leeds. And maybe to our advantage, especially in the 23s, there were a lot of new Spanish players, such as yourself, Oriol Rey, Osama Sadiki, Alejandro Machuca, Kun from Barcelona, and quite a few others. But were you aware that that would be the case and a lot of Spanish players joining you at Leeds? And how did that help you? Because, of course, they would have helped you settle into England and Leeds.
Yeah, I remember when I arrived there, they were already there. So for me, it was easier to at the beginning can adapt to the dressing room and to know about this club also. So we made a small group, Spanish group, and now I continue having good relationship with a lot of them.
As well as the players in that under-23 side, the head coach was also Spanish because at the time, Carlos Corberan was the head coach of the under-23s. Because Carlos was Spanish and could speak Spanish, which would obviously help you again, how did you find him as a head coach? Because to the fans, he seemed like a very talented head coach, and it was a shame to see him leave Leeds last season when he went to Huddersfield.
Yeah, I think he was and he is very very good coach, and personally he helped to me a lot to develop my football also. So I am very grateful that when I arrived there, he was there also.
And when you joined the club, that under-23 side was a good team in your first year. And like I mentioned before, there was a lot of Spanish players in that team, but there was also a lot of talented English youngsters, such as Jordan Stevens, Ryan Edmondson, and Jack Clark. And at the time, Jack Clark's agent, and still is, was one of Leeds United's old defenders in Ian Hart. And in your first season at the club, when you were playing alongside a lot of them Spanish players, he tweeted out along the lines saying that he was fuming tonight with the under-23s because all he could hear was Spanish being said on the pitch. And it seemed to anger him as an agent and as a fan of the under-23s. But what did you make to that? Because I presume you saw it at the time. And how did it make you and the other Spanish players feel? Because that tweet caused quite a reaction to the Leeds fans. Because in my opinion, especially, it was very harsh of him to say that just because of your background and the language that you were speaking on the pitch.
Yeah, I remember that moment, and I think it was a big mistake on his part, because the identity of one club doesn't depend of the origin of the players. So, for example, I was captain second year in under-23s, and it's because I had a lot of respect for the country, for the culture, for the club. I made very good friends for England, from another country. So I think it was a mistake. And also when you listen this from a famous footballer from Leeds, it's a bit hard, but you have to continue and try to. In my opinion, I try to show that I wanted to adapt to the country, to the culture, and to the club also.
Although you were brought in as an under-23s player, and at the time you were just 20, and in April, towards the back end of your first season at Leeds, the first team were missing a few defenders to injury, which meant you were called up to the first team for the first time. So how did you find out that you would be involved with the first team squad for that away game at Preston in April 2018, and how did you feel about making the step up to the first team with Paul Heckingbottom as manager?
Yeah, for me it was a very unbelievable moment, honestly. I was very grateful to be only in the squad, because for me it's like a dream. So be in the squad with players that when I was young I can watch them in the TV or follow their careers. For me it's unbelievable.
So you started on the bench for that match against Preston. However, just after an hour, Leeds was set back with another defensive injury, and you replaced defender Pontus Jansson to make your Leeds United debut. So what can you remember about your debut in the first team, and how did it feel to make a step up to the Championship in such conditions?
Yeah, I remember that I was in the bench, and I couldn't warm up because in the situation of the second goal, Pontus got injury and I had to go in. But for me, personally, it's one of the happiest moments in my life, because making my professional debut and also in a big club like Leeds, it's unbelievable.
And unfortunately, Leeds did lose the game 3-1, but did you feel that your appearance that day could have been the first of many at Leeds United? And ultimately, was that your aim to progress from the 23s and hopefully become a regular for Leeds?
Honestly, I was always very focused that I was player of under-23s, and that's very important for everything. And honestly, I thought I have a good debut. I was proud to this moment, because I think I was good enough. But I know the to get chances in one club like Leeds is difficult, and sometimes you can take the opportunity and sometimes you have to wait.
Yeah, and like Jack said, unfortunately, that appearance at Preston Feud turned out to be your only appearance for leading the Championship. However, at the end of that 2017-18 season, although you continued to play in that under-23 side as opposed to the first team, you were called back up to the first team for the end-of-season trip to Myanmar, which caused quite a reaction in the media and to many football fans because of the situation in Myanmar. Because of the troubles there, it was reported that a number of the Leeds players didn't want to go on the trip. However, you were one of the players that did travel. So what made you want to go? And did you ever have any second thoughts about taking part in that? Because it was quite an unusual thing for Leeds to do at that time.
Yeah, I remember this moment, but mm, personally, I had no doubts because um, I wanted to have opportunities and to play for first team. So for me, it wasn't a problem to go there. So I tried to go and to give my best, obviously, like always.
Yeah, and Leeds played 2 games out there in Myanmar. The first of which was against the Myanmar All-Star team, which was basically the best players who played in the Myanmar League, and the second was against the Myanmar national team. And you played in both of them games, starting the first one against the All-Star, and then coming on as a sub against the national team. But what can you remember about the games themselves, and what was it like playing out there in Myanmar?
Yeah, I remember that it was very, very hot. The weather was hard to play because there were a lot of humidity in the city, and we had to stop the game like 2 or 3 times per half. But we have to adapt and we have to play like normal game.
Yeah, and that reason the trip to Myanmar was seen as controversial was because of the troubles that the country had with human rights abuses in the past. But what did you make of that trip as a whole? Because as well as the football, you went on the trips around the country to see the huge and beautiful temples and the fantastic scenery. So what was that side of the trip like for you? And did you feel that you made the right decision? Because it must have been a once in a lifetime opportunity for you to visit that country and the sights that you saw.
Yeah, honestly, I told you before that I had no doubts to go, but obviously because I wanted to have opportunities in the first team. But I remember I had very good memories of the country and of these temples and the city. It was very nice to see to visit that place also.
And after that trip to Myanmar, Leeds parted ways with head coach at the time, Paul Heckingbottom, and his replacement at the start of the 2018-19 season would be Marcelo Bielsa. And that appointment seemed to be a massive coup and a great achievement for Leeds, which obviously still is. And it was reported that he had a very unique start to life at Leeds, and in his very first training session, made the players pick up litter from around the training ground. So was that true? And if so, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, that's true. He tried to make us think about the most important in football, which are the fans. So for me, it was I understood the reason in that moment that I I, I make like one training more. I so it's training for life, I think.
What changes did Marcelo have at Leeds when he arrived? Because as well as a litter picking, like you've just talked about, it was said that he changed quite a lot about the football club as a whole when he joined, such as the training ground, the training sessions, and just the general atmosphere within the team.
Yeah, in my opinion, for me, he's one of the best coaches in the world. So and he is very hard worker. So I think he tried to change everything that could help to improve, and uh, also he made a very human group, and that's very important in one dressing room also.
And when Marcelo arrived, you were still obviously involved heavily with the under 23s. And although Marcelo was the first team head coach, he seemingly brought the under 23s closer to the first team. Did you feel that you and the under 23s did become more involved with the first team when he arrived? Because, of course, one of his famous sessions is that murder ball session, which seemingly involves both the first team and the under 23s.
Yeah, yeah. All the under 23 players we had a lot of chances to go training with first team to make these strong and physically trainings that he made. So for me, it's an unbelievable experience to come train with one of the best coaches in the world.
Yeah, and his first pre-season game was at York City, and that season, all of Leeds' pre-season fixtures in England, but that York City game in particular was a game that you featured in and came on as a sub. So what can you remember about that game and playing under Marcelo Bielsa? And what was the difference between playing under Bielsa and maybe Paul Heckingbottom, which you did in the previous season?
Yeah, to be honest, I before he came to Leeds, I knew some of his style because he was coach of Athletic de Bilbao, and I told you before that for me is one of the best coaches, so I knew more or less. And training with him, I could know. I could learn some things that I never trained, for example, in my career. And his style of football, he try always to attack, to press, to fight also, and to take this risk that okay, you can score 3 goals and you can receive 3 goals, but at the end it's very how I can say very emotional game, very good for one person that is in the TV watching the game. For example, when I was here, I tried to watch the game because I enjoy the game, and sometimes in when you see some games you don't feel this.
Yeah, definitely. And still to this day, Marcelo uses a translator because of his English, but of course his first language is Spanish, which is the same as you. So because of that, did you find it easier to speak to him and understand Marcelo when you can obviously understand what comes out of his mouth as opposed to a translated version? And by speaking Spanish, did it allow you to have like private conversations with him, whereas the English players might not have been able to have that sort of interaction?
I didn't have any private conversation with him, but for me it was better to understand him, that what he wants to let us know about what he wanted in for the team. So for me it was much better also. But
did you feel that, like, if the translator was obviously translating his Spanish into English, do you think that came across the same, or do you think the English might have been slightly different to what he's saying in his Spanish?
Yeah, he's very hard working also in his words. You can see that he wanted always to be very exactly in his words. So sometimes it's difficult to make this translation.
Yeah.
And although you didn't feature for Leeds in the Championship that first season under Marcelo, and only featured once in the squad, which was an away trip to QPR in the FA Cup third round, you were captain for the under-23s that season. And that year, your side won the PDL Northern Under-23 League title. For people who don't understand, that's basically the highest accolade for a Category 2 academy at the time. So what was that season like for you in the under-23s? Because it must have been a great achievement to lead the under-23s to a bit of silverware, as well as being the captain.
Yeah, it was amazing for me season. I think we got a very good a team. Also, not only in the pitch, also in the dressing room, we have very good behaviors. We have very good atmosphere inside, and I thought this is one of the biggest reasons that we achieved these titles.
And as well as the league, your side became the Professional Development League champions by beating Birmingham City at Ellen Road on penalties, which was obviously another great moment for you and your side. But as well as that win, there were over 8,000 Leeds fans at Ellen Road to support you in the under-23s that day, which I can only imagine to be a fantastic and buzzing feeling to play in front of such many people.
Yeah. At the beginning, I couldn't believe that 8,000 people came to watch one game of under-23s, because that's not normal. But at the end, it was a very amazing day, obviously.
Were you nervous at all before that? Because obviously I know you play in front of spectators at under-23 level, but nowhere near the level of 8,000. Were you feeling a bit apprehensive or nervous beforehand, or were you just pretty calm?
I never see one that the fans, a lot of fans goes to watch one second team of one team. Is impossible, I think.
As well as them cups and leagues, obviously that was a fantastic year for you as a player, and to captain that side was even better. But at the end of that season, your contract was set to expire. But because of the league and cup win, did you expect to be given a new deal at the club? Because you were still only 22 and could have potentially even broken into the first team after that impressive season.
Yeah, honestly, I in that moment I knew that it was difficult that I can get a new contract, because I thought my moment in under 23s got to the end, and I know that one club like Leeds has very amazing players, and the competition is very difficult. So I understood the decision, and I was very grateful to the club.
Like you just mentioned then, you weren't offered a new contract, and as a result, you were released from Leeds in 2019, which to a lot of Leeds fans was a big surprise because of the captain and the results from the previous season. But how did you find out yourself that you would be leaving Leeds? Did you have a conversation with Marcelo or Victor Orta, and what did it feel like to leave?
For me, honestly, Leeds now is like my second home, and it's true. And I think I never will can thank to the affection that I received in my time at Leeds. But sometimes you need to understand that this is football, and sometimes you want to stay, but the club has another option or another think about it, another thought.
Although you were only in Leeds for 2 seasons, how did you find your time at Leeds? Because when you departed, I can remember you tweeted a very emotional message when you left the club, basically saying how much you appreciated your time at Leeds and more or less echoing what you've just said there. So how did you find your time there, and what do you think it was that made you feel, in your own words, so at home at Leeds, and why was it so special to you?
Yeah, I told you before that for me it's like my second home, because I was very adapted to the city, to the fans, to the culture, and I was very very happy in my 2 years there, and I can only say thank you for that chapter there, because it's impossible to can imagine when I arrived that I could get all of this, and this affection that I received from the people and from the fans is, for me, something that I can never forget.
Like we touched on at the beginning of the podcast, you're playing your football in Poland at the moment, but do you still look out for Leeds, the results, watch the games in the Premier League now? Because especially Leeds are back in the Premier League now, so you can basically walk into any bar around the world and there'll be the Premier League on.
Yes, I try to see if I can. I try to see all of their games, because I enjoy a lot, and I think they are doing an amazing season. They are 8, and what can I say more? It's amazing.
I would say, do you think you'll come back to Ellen Road again one day, maybe to watch a game if you can?
Yes, I think yes. I will travel to Leeds and to Ellen Road, and because it's like my second home, and I need to go also.
We're talking about the first team as well. Have you had a chance to watch any of your under-23 games yet? Well, this season, obviously Leeds were crowned champions of the PDL2 because we've just been promoted to a Cat 1 academy now. I don't know if you're aware. And won the Premier League 2, which is a great achievement as well. So I just wondered if you've had a chance to look out for any of the under-23 games this season as well.
Yeah, I know that they won the league, and I think they are they are making an amazing year. Not only the first team, also the academy is unbelievable.
As always, in the second section of the show, we put forward 4 questions to our guests which have been submitted by some of our LUFC Fan Zone Instagram followers. To have a chance of featuring, simply head over to our LUFC Fan Zone Instagram page and look out for our guest announcement, where the best 4 questions in the comment section of that post will feature in this section of the show. This week's first question comes from Andy, who asks, you only managed to make 1 appearance for Leeds' first team, but can you remember the first time you trained with Leeds' first team, and what was that like?
Yes, I remember it was with Paul Heckingbottom, and I remember that I was happy to be there. I tried to get the opportunity to continue being involved in the trainings.
And this week's second question comes from Alex, who asks, who was the best player you played alongside in the under-23s team?
I think I cannot decide for one, because in these 2 years there were a lot of good players. I can say, for example, Jack Clark that you mentioned before. You can say now Pascal is in first team making amazing job. Also, for me, Oriol Rey, it was a very good. He is a very good talent player. So honestly, I cannot decide for one.
And next up is Rob, who asks, what was your best memory of the Leeds United fans?
I think I have like 2 memories that I won't never forget. The first one, it was my first day in Leeds when I arrived, and I went direct to the stadium to see 1 game of first team, and honestly, I cannot imagine this atmosphere, honestly. And after, when I made my debut, I remember to see in Preston all the Leeds fans, and also I couldn't imagine, because I never saw that in my past, you know.
And this week's final question comes from Callum, who asks, during your time at Leeds United, what was your greatest moment and why?
Yeah, obviously in this one I don't have doubts, because my happiest moment there and in my life maybe is when I made my debut there. For me and my family was a very important moment.
Was your family lucky enough to be there at Preston and watch you there?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Was your family lucky enough to be there at Preston and watch it live?
Yeah, did you see that in the TV?
Ah, on the telly. Oh. And that ends today's episode. Thank you to everyone for sending your questions, and thank you so much for your time, Hugo. It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back next week with another guest. Stay tuned for the post over on our LUFC Fan Zone Instagram later in the week. Thanks for listening.